Welcome to this explainer. I'm putting on my Senior Director of Project Delivery hat today. We're tackling something that gives almost every project manager and Scrum Master, myself included back in the day, a minor panic attack: project escalations. There's always this huge tug of war, right? We absolutely want our teams to be self-sufficient and solve things locally, but man, we literally cannot afford to let critical blockers just sit there silently until it's way too late for executives to step in. So how do we actually bridge that gap?
It really comes down to this core question: when does a minor sprint delay actually become a critical executive emergency? Getting this threshold wrong is exactly how projects fail. If you escalate too quickly, you're just creating noise, tension, and decision fatigue at those higher levels. But if you casually reprioritize things that you shouldn't, you run face first into misaligned goals, broken commitments, or what we call silent failure. Okay, let's dive into this. We're going to figure out the exact thresholds and frameworks you need to turn all that chaos into a highly structured management system.
So here is our blueprint for today. We are covering 5 distinct pillars. 1, psychological safety. 2, the threshold. 3, the 4-tier matrix. 4, escalation communication. And finally, conflict and review. Let's get right into it.
Section 1, the foundation of psychological safety. Honestly, you can have the most beautiful, structured escalation matrix in the entire world, but if your team is too scared to raise their hand when they're stuck, yeah, that matrix is entirely useless.
Think about team safety, or psychological safety. It's basically the comfort within a team to engage other members and leadership without any fear of negative consequences or blame. Research like Google's Project Aristotle actually shows this is the #1 factor in high performance. We really need to explicitly reframe what escalation means. It is not a failure of the team, not at all. It's actually a super healthy, essential process of servant leadership. Escalating an issue just means you care enough about the project's success to pull the right people into the loop.
So, how do we actually build this kind of vulnerability-based trust? Well, leaders absolutely have to model it first. Admit your mistakes and apologize readily. You've also got to completely eliminate team gossip. That stuff destroys trust instantly. Try using things like kudo cards to publicly share credit and celebrate your wins. But equally important, share your failures openly too. Treat them as experiments that we all learn from. And above all else, always assume positive intent. When you build this kind of psychological framework, your team members will literally never fear escalating blockers early.
Moving on to Section 2, speed bump or escalatable issue. Now that we've built a safe environment, we have to draw a really sharp line between what a team just reprioritizes on their own and what they absolutely must escalate.
We have to distinguish between a minor sprint speed bump and a true escalatable issue. A speed bump is totally within the team's control. Maybe a feature estimate bumps up a bit, but it still fits within your sprint's capacity buffers. Or maybe it's an internal dependency you can easily renegotiate in your daily stand-up. That just requires standard backlog stewardship. Just reprioritize it. An escalatable issue, though, that is completely outside the team's control. It breaches your budget or your timeline guardrails, crosses portfolio boundaries, or introduces systemic risk. If fixing the issue means you have to change strategic themes or pull new funding, that is a hard escalation.
So how do we make this call without getting overly emotional about it? We use the threshold test. Just ask yourself these 5 simple questions. 1, is this within my defined authority? 2, does it affect only this team? 3, can we solve it within our existing scope buffers? 4, does it change our portfolio strategy or funding? And 5, does it increase risk beyond our tolerance? Here's the absolute crucial takeaway. If the answers to the first 3 are yes, and the last 2 are no, you just reprioritize. But the second the answer to question 4 or 5 becomes a yes, you must escalate immediately. Please do not try to be a hero here, because project heroes usually end up creating massive silent failures.
All right, Section 3, the 4-tier escalation matrix. So, your issue just failed the threshold test. What happens next? Well, we need clear protocols.
To prevent that dreaded decision paralysis, we implement a strict 24-hour escalation rule. It goes like this. At hour 0, the team spots the blocker during the daily scrum. Over the next 24 hours, the Scrum Master attempts to resolve it. Maybe they go talk to a security team or another department. If it's still unresolved by hour 24, boom, it is immediately escalated to the product owner. If by hour 48 it's still blocking progress, it goes even higher. Eventually you hit hour 72, where executive intervention or maybe a C-level policy exception might be needed. The golden rule: never let an impediment just sit unresolved.
This timeline maps perfectly onto a 4-tier matrix.
Level 1 is the project team, which is typically handled by the Scrum Master. Level 2 moves up to the project manager, product owner, or program manager. Level 3 hits the steering committee, or project board. They oversee the high-level decisions. And finally, Level 4 is executive management, like your C-level sponsors, for major strategic intervention. But here is the secret weapon across all these levels, the DRI, the directly responsible individual. At every single tier, one specific DRI must own that communication loop to maintain absolute accountability. Bypassing these levels, what we call skip-level escalation, almost always causes confusion, so we really must follow the matrix progressively.
Next up, Section 4, crafting the escalation communication. Listen, when you're managing upwards and speaking to executives, you have got to speak their language.
You cannot just dump a massive problem on your boss's desk and walk away. Escalation has to be heavily data-driven because leadership responds to hard facts, not frustration. So before you hit send, prep your data using this exact structure. First, metrics and evidence. Show them the exact delays, the financial impact, and the cross-team dependencies. Second, propose solutions. Give them alternative paths. Seriously, don't just complain, recommend a detour. And finally, requested action. Specify the precise decision or approval you need from leadership to actually move forward.
To make this absolutely foolproof, here is a standardized escalation email template that you can steal right now. Imagine firing this off with high urgency. Quote, "The team is blocked due to missing database access. Without it, we cannot complete 2 key backlog items, which will delay our release. Can you approve access today so we stay on track?" End quote. Honestly, it is brilliant in its simplicity. It clearly states the problem, it quantifies the business impact, delaying the release, and it asks for a highly specific time-bound decision. No endless loops of clarifying emails, just clear, concise, upward management.
Finally, we arrive at Section 5, conflict resolution and review. Because sometimes an escalation isn't just about a missing password, right? Sometimes it's about a fundamental disagreement between stakeholders or different teams.
When stakeholders have conflicting priorities that start delaying critical approvals, we need a conflict resolution protocol. First off, we have to reframe conflict entirely. If people are afraid to disagree, you just get this artificial harmony where really bad ideas go completely unchallenged. Constructive conflict is actually good. Now, if a dispute is actively disrupting progress, we escalate it to a mini steering committee to mediate. During that mediation, we consciously emphasize facts and the economic business impact over personal emotions. The end goal is always to align those conflicting priorities back to the overarching project objectives.
Okay, so once the dust settles and the issue is finally resolved, the work isn't quite over. We have to extract long-term value from that roadblock through a post-escalation review process. This means conducting a root cause analysis to figure out why the defect or blocker popped up in the first place. If we uncover a new systemic risk, we update the risk management plan immediately. We document all those hard-won lessons in the issue log. And, perhaps most importantly, we adjust our team's definition of done or our working norms to permanently prevent this specific root cause from recurring in future sprints. We want to eliminate recurring blockers at the root. You definitely don't want to play Groundhog Day with the exact same fires every single month.
Which brings us to our final thought. Managing escalations upward isn't about fixing your boss or complaining about external teams. It's really about creating the conditions for your team to succeed no matter what is happening above or around you. So, the next time your project hits a wall, I want you to ask yourself a question. Are you building a detour or are you just staring at the roadblock? I challenge you to implement these matrices and templates in your very next sprint. Empower your teams and take back control of your project's momentum. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I will catch you next time.